The odds for promotions to the Premier League have been released for championship clubs in the upcoming season. Some of the names may shock you on there, especially with a club that's facing a point deduction. Today we're going to talk through the 6 teams with the best odds for promotion according to bookies. Maybe we don't all agree with that, but we're going to go through some rationale. And I'm going to give a dark horse for a team that I think could sneak into the Premier League next year if all goes well. Before we get into it, my name is Jonah Fat Cat. I make EFL championship content and I make footy content in general. If you are a fan of the channel, of football, drop a sub, like the video, comment on the video. I love debating with people. And if you saw my mistake in my previous video where I put a picture of Sam Morrissey instead of George Hurst, no you didn't. Like the video or else your grandma would tear her ACL. Alright, now that we're 30 seconds in, let me be completely honest with you. These odds are absolutely shit. They're lazy from the bookmakers. They're stupid. They're putting all 3 parachute payment teams obviously at the top. It's lazy. It's just designed to take your money. I don't think any of these are good bets. Maybe 1 or 2. Or if you just have a passion bet you want to put in and just have something fun to root for 10 months. So you're going to hear that constant theme throughout. I'm going to try to stay level-headed for the analysis and then we'll go from there and we'll make sure that I don't crash out. First team that we're going to talk about with the 6th best odds to get promoted is Coventry City. Trending upwards in the last 5 years. Obviously, we're unsuccessful in the 2 playoff appearances, but I think that this is one of my favorite bets value-wise. Not only because I am a fan of this club, but because there isn't a lot changing. And I'm sure there's going to be people who say,
oh, last year, obviously, you couldn't break down Sunderland's low block.
But I think that the team will come in more prepared to face low blocks. I think they're going to come up against a lot more low blocks this year because Sunderland provided the perfect game plan for that. I think they'll create more goals from the middle of the pitch. I think they scored the most headed cross goals in Europe last season. I look for some of the Frank Lampard magic to shine through. They definitely need to make at least 2 more signings, specifically a center back and a center mid, to be able to get over the line. But I think it's getting to a point with Coventry City where playoffs or bust is the motto. I see them getting there, especially because the next team we're going to talk about has a potential point deduction and maybe even a second one looming. If you guessed it, you know ball. The next team coming at the same odds as Coventry City are Leicester City at 9-2 or 5.5. So again, one last time I'm going to mention it. $100 would return you $550. They have parachute payments. They have players who played in the championship before. They're established, respectable players. They've got a decent striker in Patson Daka who sometimes maybe has some finishing issues, but overall the consensus is that he should be a very good player in the championship. He had 12 goals and assists in 20 matches behind Jamie Vardy in their previous championship campaign where they absolutely tore shit up. But we know that there is potentially a 9-point deduction coming from their failure to submit financial records, and I believe it was from losing too much money. On top of that, they may also be facing a point deduction from last season, which would come in 2026 most likely. Who knows? But if the bookies are putting them at 6 to get in, I think that they probably know that it will be 9 points, and that won't be too much for them to overcome when, you know, coming off a year where last season you got into the playoffs with points in the 60s. There's no question we all agree the level of play in the championship is going to be higher this year. Even if they do lose someone like El Canoes, they can bring someone in. They still got a couple weeks. They will have the money. They will have the parachute payments. Parachute payments for the first year teams are usually somewhere between 50 and 60 million. So that puts them a completely different tax bracket above the rest of the league, other than Ipswich and Southampton. Final say on Leicester City: stay away. 9 points at the beginning of the season, potentially more coming in 2026. The EFL may want to make an example of them for the tomfoolery that they got away with their lawyer in the past. Yes, Sheffield United made the playoff with a point deduction last year, but that was only 2 points, and you never know what can happen here. Players could get poached. New manager coming in. On the flip side, probably the best payout you would get for a parachute newly relegated team to go right back up. So make your own opinion. I personally would stay away. Let's talk about 4th and 3rd for non-parachute payment teams. First is Birmingham City at 5-2. And honestly, I'm just getting to a point where I really don't want to talk about them anymore. Kyogo, Damari Gray, Fujimoto, who's injured right now, Tommy Doyle from Wolves, who's had 50 plus matches in the Premier League, James Beadle on loan from Brighton, Phil Newman. They already had Jay Stansfield. I think it's safe to say they see a gap and they are going for promotion this year. And even if they don't get it, they have some absolutely ridiculous ad revenue or some deals. I don't know where they're cleaning their money, but PSR doesn't seem to be an issue because they have a crazy revenue, so they're able to balance out these signings, like, you know, splashing 10 mil on Kyogo. They'll probably be there. So with this bet, it just depends. Are you confident in the fact that they'll make it into the playoffs? They will be able to, you know, adapt to the championship quick enough to get themselves solidified in that 3 to 6 position, because I don't really see automatic. And then do you think that they can clutch up in those 2 playoff legs? One thing I noticed here, the bookies definitely factored in the hype. Not me saying that, oh, they're not good enough, because on paper they couldn't literally go automatic promotion. But are you willing to place a bet at those odds when, you know, even though they are like considered a dark horse, they aren't priced as one? You let me know. I know our 2 clubs don't have the best relationship, but I'm trying to keep an open mind here, and just the signings speak for themselves. With the 3rd best odds at 9-4 or 3.25, 100 returns 325, Sheffield United, the team that probably should have been in the Premier League. They completely bottled that playoff final against Sunderland. Sunderland. They looked like they were going to run away with it. They were up 2-0 before VAR called a goal back. Transfer-wise, they haven't done too much. I know they have their AI recruitment model. People are talking about, are they maybe in financial trouble? But there hasn't been any report of that other than just speculation on the fact that they haven't splashed the cash. But they really didn't need to. They have a good team. They may be losing Hamer, which would be a big loss for them, but they still have Tyrese Campbell, who I spoke about, saying I think he definitely has a chance of being the top scorer. They've got another good striker, Thomas Cannon, Callum O'Hare in the midfield. They do have a new manager, but he has been in the championship before and he's decently established, so I think they'll probably be a safe bet to make the playoffs. Promotion, I'm not too sure. If they do end up in a do or die moment like a playoff final like last year, you think the jitters are probably going to set in. Who knows what's going to happen? Who knows who they're even going to be facing? And they're heavy favorites to make the playoff again, so are you willing to back them in the playoffs again? If so, maybe a good bet. I said it with Coventry, I say it with them. I like teams that have a lot of continuity so that you don't have to go through that rough patch of kind of making new bonds and connections and feeling each other out. So they have a majority of the same squad returning if they bring in one or two options. Could be. Now the final two, were there ever a doubt? No, but you may be shocked on who's first and who's second, and it's by an absolute tiny little fraction decimal. The second most likely team to get promoted next season is Southampton, just barely losing out to Ipswich at number 1. Southampton coming in at 19-10, Ipswich coming in at 11-8. I've been kind of thinking about this a lot recently, and a week ago I definitely thought that Ipswich were the clear number 1, but I'm starting to have second thoughts as I begin to formulate my actual predictions, non-value betting wise. Southampton are going to score a shit ton of goals this year. Like 4 strikers that I could see getting 10 plus goals: Cameron Archer, Ross Stewart, Adam Armstrong, Damian Downs. They have a decent back line. Something I thought was interesting, I don't know much about him. They brought in a German center back from Hoffenheim. They paid £3.5 million for him. He's got a 10.1 million market value, so I don't know if that comes down to maybe there's a sell-on clause, but he could be a force to be reckoned with at the back. They've already got Harwood Bellis as well. I know he's got a knock right now, but he should be okay. If they lose Ramsdale, I'm sure Will still has someone in the back of his mind, some random Belgian. There's so many good random-ass Belgian keepers he can grab, but I feel like they're going to take the Norwich approach and just outscore their opponents. But even on top of that, their back line has Premier League experience. They're going to be just fine in the championship. So as much as I think they have a chance of getting promoted automatic, is it worth tying up your money to get $100 back at the end of the season if you put down 100? I don't think so. Just take the wife and kids out to dinner, man. If you don't want to do that, which is why you're on this video, maybe you combine it with another future, like someone to finish top 6 in the Prem. Maybe you take like someone that's a little juiced up, like a Chelsea. Don't think you'll get good value on like City, Liverpool, Arsenal to finish top 6, but then that'll increase your pad a little bit, and it's somewhat of a safe bet there as well. So maybe you combine them together. Last but not least, before I give my dark horse, coming in at number 1, as we said, is Ipswich Town. There isn't much to say. They spent $10 million on Azar Matasiwa, Sam Morsi replacement. They've got Philogene. They've got players who were key and pivotal in their championship run 2 years ago. Sammy Smodics, Nathan Broadhead is still there, Jack Clark, George Hurst. They're going to be an absolute force to be reckoned with. You figure even if they lose Amari Hutchinson or not, if they lose him, they'll get 40 mil for him. They'll replace him. They lost a lap. They didn't have too much of an issue replacing him just from it within. They've got a really good coach. Even if maybe they don't start off the best, I think that he'll make changes and he'll figure some stuff out, and they're just going to have a pretty fun time this year, to be fair, compared to last year at least. See, now this I would actually take. Money value to time-wise, it's not the best, but Ipswich have such a good team. They're returning such a strong core. They have an amazing coach. I see them going right back up. I don't even think you would need to parlay. Let's put something. Put in 100, take back $238. It's like investing in the stock market. You know what's going to happen. It's going to go up eventually. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, my dark horse coming in at 13-2 is Norwich City, which now that I'm saying it out loud is really not good value. What are the bookies on with these odds? There is a reason Vegas looks the way it does, to be fair. And now there's uncertainty with the Josh Sargent saga, so if he stays, it just makes it even sweeter for them. And if you ask me, are they getting automatic? Hell no. But they could sneak in the playoffs and make something happen. I listened to an interview with their previous manager, Johannes Thora. He mentioned that their transfer strategy going into the 24-25 season was to get players who would need a year to mature, and then in their second, third year, that's when they would start stepping up to the plate. So there's a couple guys that I could see definitely taking a step up this year. And I will say I'm not super familiar with all these players. I do know Jacob Wright. Jacob Wright is a very solid player. They got him for a good fee. Ante Chernak is one of them. He had 7 goals and 4 assists last year. Pretty good. He'll definitely take a step up out on that wing and to feed the ball to. They've also got a scary looking striker, Matthias Kvistgarden. Well, I guess he's not that scary looking, but his goal to game ratio is scary. 17 goals in 29 matches in the Super League in last year. They did clearly try to strengthen their defense, as that was an issue last year. They brought in Harry Darling, who is 25 years old. He has a ton of championship experience, which is definitely something that you want. So I don't know. I just feel like maybe they take a step forward, bring in a new manager, change up the tactics a little bit. He needs to have a good start, get off to the ground running, because I know their issue last year was that like Sains and Sargent started off really strong and then they kind of fizzled out. Sains got suspended, Sargent got injured. If he can keep up a decent goal scoring pace throughout the season and their second year players take steps up, who knows? That was just a little cheeky one today. I think we all probably had an idea of who the top 6 were, but it's cool to see it on paper and just kind of hear someone else's opinion. Like I said, I'm always down to bounce ideas off of each other and just generally debate what went on in this video today. So that's going to be the end. If you made it to the end, please just hit the subscription button. We're growing pretty good. I really appreciate the support so far. Also, if you're still here, drop a like. I think it boosts the algo and it gets more views. So that's sick. And remember, if you don't, your grandma's ACL gone. Thank you and peace.